Hello everyone, my name is Jaleesa and I made a YouTube video for my project final for my religion course from the University of Indianapolis. In this video, I'm going to discuss why I decided to take the class and focus the conversation of the synoptic problem. And last but not least, I would like to talk to you about the authorship of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John for now. As you know, Christianity is one of the largest prominent religions that we have today. It started small and spread itself across the nations, changing the minds of many Gentiles and Jewish people. I personally do not affiliate myself with any belief systems. I am an atheist, but I grew up from a Catholic background, and I always wanted to understand the origins of the New Testament because it is arguably different to that of the Old Testament. At UIndy, I took a journey of enlightenment where I took courses such as The Strange World of Medieval Europe, Christian Theology, Judaism, and last but not least, this course that I'm currently taking called The New Testament Life and Literature. In other words, the course is also known as Religion 210. I took Religion 210 in hopes of learning more about the historical context of the New Testament and also to recognize the different theories that interpreted the Gospels and other written documents. The course itself focuses solely on Jesus of Nazareth and the books about his life, the early Christian movement, and letters written by apostolic figures. This course also helps the student to understand the literature of the New Testament in the context of the history and culture of the Greco-Roman world. Therefore, I was able to discover many interesting findings with the guidance of Dr. Johnson, who is my professor for this course. Before I continue to discuss the synoptic problem and the authorship of the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, I do want to mention the books that I had to purchase for this course for anyone that's interested to study the New Testament at the college level. Therefore, the books required for this course consist of the following: Introducing the New Testament, 2nd edition by Mark Allen Powell, also known as the INT book. The other book that we had to purchase was the HarperCollins Study Bible, obviously by HarperCollins. So if you are interested, you can always purchase these books. That way you can study the New Testament. It offers different point of views. It's really open-minded, especially with the INT book. It's something that you should consider. So what is the synoptic problem? The synoptic problem focuses on the summaries provided by the three Gospels. Each Gospel, such as Matthew, Mark, and Luke, foretell a point of view towards Jesus' characteristics. The goal is to relate each Gospel to one another, but before that is done, one needs to consider the different types of synopsis that are known as the following: triple tradition, double tradition, special Matthew, and special Luke. The triple tradition consists of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and within the three Gospels, one can often see wording parallels in between them and some kind of oral traditions or copying going on within the authors. The Gospel of Mark is recognized as the mediating factor or the agreement between Matthew and Luke. Familiarity from them all consists of miracles and the prominence of the Passion narrative. Unlike the third tradition, the double tradition consists of Matthew and Luke, which contains around 250 verses. You will find the Lord's Prayer, the Beatitudes, and the temptation story from these two Gospels, but not in parallel wording. The special Matthew focuses on the Gospel of Matthew himself and contains Pontius Pilate's wife's dream and the parables of the 10 virgins. Special Luke, on the other hand, is self-explanatory. It only focuses on Luke and is more often praised due to its beautiful storytelling, such as the Good Samaritan. The story on Mark helps us provide a solution to the synoptic problem because each gospel eventually remains in agreement with one another. You will see that throughout the following passages, such as Matthew chapter 24, verses 15 to 22, Mark 13, verses 14 to 20, and Luke chapter 21, verses 20 to 24. They all talk about the great tribulation or great distress of mankind. All the passages withheld the same meaning but different wording. However, when Luke states that Jerusalem will be trodden down by the Gentiles, he refers the Gentiles to the Roman army. Both Matthew and Mark do not mention the Gentiles. In comparison to Matthew and Mark, Luke actually witnessed the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD, and the other authors did not. The INT book discusses that the Synoptic Gospel literally means seeing each other, or seen together. And it is applied to the three Gospels because the contents could be read and compared in parallel columns, as we mentioned before. The book also mentions that all interpreters are highly encouraged to see the authors and this list of point of view. First, they should see that Mark's Gospel was written first, and Matthew and Luke both had copies of Mark's Gospel at that time. Second, another early source called Q was also produced in the early church. Third, Matthew had an additional material that Luke did not have, which is known as the M material. Fourth, Luke has some additional material that Matthew did not have, called the L material. This construal is called the two-source hypothesis, or sometimes the four hypothesis, because Matthew and Luke used two major sources from Mark and Q, in addition to other materials, M and L. Now that I have introduced and explained the significance behind the synoptic problem, I would like to shift our attention to the authorship of the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, before I let you go. The following information comes from my in-class notes that I took before the COVID crisis. I hope you all are doing well, and I will definitely love to share my information with you and those who have curious minds. Okay, to continue, let's start off with Mark. Mark is known to have written the briefest of the Gospel, and is simply told as a story with a commencement and an end in the first Gospel written. The book was anonymous, but it was written according to Mark. Moving on with Matthew. Matthew is often confused as Matthew the tax collector. He is not the tax collector. He actually appears to be a scribe, and his use of scripture is highly intricate. He is not fond of the Gentiles and obtains anti-Semitic rhetoric. Luke was a Greco-Roman author. In other words, he was a God-fearer. However, the author never names himself or herself. Some people suggest that the author may be Luke, the physician mentioned in Colossians. Luke, however, did intensive research on his work. He also says that he is writing the text for Theophilus, but we do not know who he is. He also mentions that he collects information from eyewitnesses. Last but not least, John. The authorship of John appears to be written by a group or a school of writers, or founded by the beloved disciple. John, however, is quite different from the Synoptic Gospels because there is a theory that says that John was likely unaware of the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Jesus, in the other Gospel, eats the Passover meal before he dies. And in John, he eats before the beginning of the Passover. I hope this material was informative and engaging. In conclusion, I really enjoyed this class because it provided in-depth material and open-mindedness. The course has allowed me to comprehend the significance of the Synoptic Gospel and how it has impacted how people read them. Also, knowing the authorship behind the mentioned Gospels taught me that just because a book is named after a person does not mean that that person originally wrote it. It could have been followers or students that wanted to speak on behalf of the disciple that they respected very dearly. Thank you for watching my video, and don't forget to leave a like. My best regards to everyone. Have a good one.